Today is a very special day because we have industry expert with us to address all our MBA students on our special request. And a very warm welcome to all of you, all the students staying at home and very actively attending all the classes. So today we are going to have a special session on career in finance. So we have with us Mr. Sabyasachi Banerjee. I will quickly take you through his profile. He is a result-oriented professional with proven career in conceiving and implementing effective strategies that can add value to the organization through rich experience and innovation excellence. He has completed his executive business management program from IIM Calcutta, Global Business Management. Gold for expert from University of Cambridge, UK, University of Paderborn, Germany. He has completed his ACMA from the Institute of Accountants of India. He has completed his CA from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and he has completed his BCom from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. He is a competent professional with 24 plus years of experience in pre-sales, managing large customer engagements, transition, business development, managing large SAP projects, and sales support. Sir has been global pre-sales lead for SAP Finance and S/4HANA Central Finance. Lead SAP pre-sales team of around 10 pre-sale architects. Sir has very good, excellent and communication and customer engagement capability with multicultural experience, and he drove robust solution design and business acquisition. Sir was responsible for managing repository of S/4HANA for global references, boiler templates, and artifacts, and supporting global pre-sales team based on their requirements. He managed and provided solutions in S/4HANA, implementation and migration, rollout, consolidation and harmonization opportunities, large upgrades, and strategic SAP AM. He leveraged innovative solutions using AI, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, agile methodology, cloudification, and using tools as differentiators. Sir has been senior global expert, global SPOC for financial services and insurance industry. Directed and delivered integrated SAP solutions through analysis and mapping of end-to-end business processes while working with business processes owners, multiple stakeholders, and other team members. He supported transition of the resources from Bulgaria to India for around 50 consultants and managed the team after transition. Sir orchestrated North and South America SAP delivery, also SAP delivery of one of the top 5 accounts of Atos, customer from Europe, and managed both SAP projects as well as AMS and ADM. He managed more than 300 SAP consultants, created Center of Excellence in few areas to ensure repetitive orders. Sir has strong networking and a very good negotiator, very good in client management, and he has very good people management skills with experience in managing multiple teams. Sir has been managing and contributing analyst report and preparation for SAP practice. He is senior expert leading SAP financial service subdomain in global expert community. His professional affiliations include Green Belt Certified and Kaizen Coordinator. He has SAP Pre-Sale Certification from SAP, and he also is certified as Senior Global Solutions Manager Certification and Senior Global Expert in Atos. He also is certified in Global Methods and Tool Champion in Siemens. With this brief introduction, I would like to introduce Sir to all of you. And today is a very special day, and we're all privileged, and it's all our pleasure to have you today on this virtual platform, sir. And our students are waiting to hear from you and get enlightenment on the career in finance from you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bala, and very good morning, everybody. I know basically this is a time where this COVID time, you're having a lot of problems, and hope everybody in your family is fine and safe. And just to add on to, thanks Bala for a very good introduction. And in fact, I just want to mention that I also been basically hands-on on finance. I was also a business controller in ABB, managed business finance, managed corporate finance in Treasury in Hewlett-Packard, India. So I do basically coming to this, you are all enthusiasts to know what are the careers in finance. Just to let you know, finance is basically the heart of any operations, heart of any company, right? Because it is the finance community who actually need to basically publish the results to the external world. Let me share my screen and please let me know whether you are able to see my screen or not.
It's visible, sir.
Perfect.
It's visible. Screen is visible.
Okay. So as I was telling you, finance is something, whatever you touch, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's production or sales, everywhere, ultimately, it will be replicated to finance. So as a finance professions, you will have a tremendous and opportunity in the coming days and also currently you are having, right? And it's a digital world that has also opened up a lot of opportunities in the finance area. Let me take you to the next slide. Let me just adjust my screen, I think. If you don't mind, just give me 2 minutes. So adjusting my screen. Let me put it down. I hope you're able to see my screen. Okay. Now, what are the financial organizations that are looking for basically experts who already working very hard in a prestigious MBA college, right? So there are a lot of opportunities that is going to come to you, and there are multiple financial organizations, right, that are looking for enthusiastic, hardworking finance people. Now, first of the thing, one of the in the list you can see is the financial services, such as bank, financial institutions. What we call in the industry is the BFSI industry, and where there is a tremendous growth for the finance consultants, finance MBA students, finance with the background in finance, right? Because as you know, if you see any of the large organization also, like if you see TCS, Infosys, 40% of the business comes from the BFSI industry. That is basically nothing but the banks and financial institutes, right? So which you can see provides a tremendous opportunity for growth and also services. Next is the professional and advisory services. Now, for finance people or the community, there is a tremendous growth for the professional services because people are looking with an expertise on finance because there is change in the laws, the taxation rules, what is basically how we can manage our wealth, how we can manage our taxation. Now, there is proper tax planning that can be done, right? How you can basically manage your day-to-day expenses. So people look for professional services, or if you have got a target, for example, you want to buy a car in next 3 years. Now you want to basically save money for that. So for that also, you need some advisory services. Maybe you can provide to your friends or your to your known people who are looking for some advisory services, how they can build that corpus. Next is basically the opportunity the financial organizations that can provide is basically the manufacturing. That is manufacturing here, I mean any kind of manufacturing, whether it's basically the goods and services. For example, if you go to large companies like ABB who manufacture a lot of things like turbines, or if you go to government organization like basically BHL, or it can be basically a telecom industry, right? That also provides a lot of services, right? Like telecom industry, like the Nokia, they also manufacture a lot of telecom equipments. Next is basically where we will look into is the audit firms. Now, some of them may be going for the chartered or costing or CS. So also some of the legal firms, they also require finance people's knowledgeable finance people services, right? So these are basically, of course, audit firms. What we mean is the costing and CS to us. So this also provides a lot of opportunities. As you know, audit is a mandatory, both basically by the CA firms. Also, there are tax audits. That is also mandatory. Also, if a manufacturing company that has got some kind of a falls into regulatory area, then they basically need to do a cost audit also, right? So this is also another very good opportunity where you can focus, and also sky is the limit here. And more organizations are coming up, and more requirement for the audits are there. Don't think only of the statutory audits. There are multiple other audits that also associated with it. For example, internal audit, interim audit, SOX audit, right? So also these are the audits. Also the companies look into it. Also there are some small and medium-sized companies that looks into also the internal kind of audit, how to optimize their operations, how they can best manage the resources. So these are also the area that are coming up. And I want it to be more interactive session. If you have got questions, please ask questions, okay? Next is the technology firms. Since you are on the southern part of India, wherein basically Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, or Kerala, you have seen a lot of growth into the IT industry, right? And IT industry from India is having more than $100 billion of basically exports only in IT industry, and huge amount of people that are working in India and abroad. And that provides a huge opportunity, right? For example, I'm also working, I've taken on the SAP ERP system based on the finance knowledge, right? So this also provides a huge opportunity for all of you to go and explore into the IT industry. With the basic knowledge in finance, you can go to the any ERP, you can go for basically DevOps part of finance, or basically you can go into the automation part or the artificial intelligence part of it. In fact, if you look into the blockchain, that is the new concept that is coming with the distributed ledger concept, that is also being one of the niche area in future that is going to come up. But for all of this, you will require to have a basic knowledge in finance, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to provide the solution or basically the services the customer is looking at. Next is basically the training organization. In this training organizations means some of you maybe get associated with colleges, maybe associated with some training organizations, right? They provide a lot of basically training to the finance community and finance world. Some of you can get associated with that, and basically there are a lot of handsome rewards in that. Maybe if you do not know, some of the institutions are providing almost the same kind of a salary what a corporate people are getting, right? So those are the top-notch basically institutes. For example, if you know Byju's or Allen, those are all, I'm just giving maybe similar kind of things in finance also are there. Next is that there are a lot of training that provides for the costing, CA, CS, CPA, right? Management accounting. So for that also, there are a lot of organizations and they really recruit high-end finance professions and they pay a huge amount of salary also. Next is the consulting. So finance consult can provide a fantastic opportunity in the consulting area. If you know about the Ernst & Young, Deloitte, Accenture, right? Those are the big four. They recruit a lot of finance people basically to give consulting to the organization in the finance domain. So finance domain includes a huge area where the corporates wants to understand how to optimize their process, how to minimize the cost, how to maximize the revenue, in turn, how to basically improve the cash management and also reduce the DSO. DSO is days sales outstanding. This is one of the criteria where basically the companies always looks at so that they can rotate their working capital faster and basically reduce the cost of interest, right? And improve the cash management. Next is the analytical services, right? So analytical services is very, very important services. Now, if you know, if any product is launched, right? So they want to do also the analysis whether this product, how successful it will be. What is the ROI they're going to get? Next is basically, there are a lot of tools, SaaS tools has also come, where basically they look into the finance analysis of the companies and also try to provide what is the best way, how the company can manage the capital, which area, which segment area they should target to maximize their profit, right? Ultimately, each and every corporate that is working is one of their aim is to maximize the profit. To maximize the profit, they must know how they can basically control their costs and which are the segments they need to work on to basically give the maximum profit. Which are the customers they need to target? What is the target audience? What is the target market, right? So those maybe you have learned maybe in your marketing session, but those are also related to finance because you need to know how much profit you're going to earn based on, because resources are all limited, right? So when the resources are limited, how you can best utilize your resources to maximize your gain. Next is basically the new dimension or the digital services. Now, as you know, that there are huge opportunity that is coming in this digital world. Now, you have seen with the lockdown, with these COVID cases, people are not meeting each other. Of course, I would have loved to visit your campus and give face-to-face presentation, right? But at this moment, I cannot do it. It is through a digital media I'm presenting it to you. But this digital services, for example, the Paytm you have been using, or basically the wallet you have been using, right? Those are also important services that has come up during this digital world, right? So there are huge opportunity that are there in the digital world or the new dimensional world that is coming up. For example, if you look into the artificial intelligence or the robotics area, using the cognitive learning, machine learning, or deep learning, right? The repetitive work that is getting reduced, and basically a lot of IT-related services are provided in the digital world, right? Until unless you have the knowledge of finance, right, you won't be able to provide support services or your consulting into this new era of digital world. Any question before I move on to the next slide? Now, coming to the financial services. Now, as you know, commercial banks, which plays an important role. Maybe you are not visiting your bank, but you are utilizing your bank going to the site. Either you are making a payment to a wire transfer, or maybe you're checking your basically what is the transaction you have done, or basically you're asking the checkbook or DD sitting at your home, right? In the banking area, there are multiple services the banks also provide, and where they actually look for a lot of people with the finance knowledge to work with them. Now, in the financial services, not only banks, it also calls for basically insurance firms. And insurance firms, as you know, it's not only the life insurance, it is also basically the insurance firms that provide basically insurance for the corporates, for any of the projects they take. For example, the airlines industry, for example, if anything happens to a plane, right, they will insure the plane. Right? So for example, let's take a simple example, a car, right? You are having a car. Now you take a vehicle insurance, right? If any damage happens or any accident happens, what you do, you just go to the insurance company and basically file your case, and after that the insurance company pays it. Similarly, for the life insurance also, the companies, they also basically, you take basically insurance, the risk against your life, or basically as an investment. After a certain period, you get a return on that, and that is tax-free at this moment in India. Now, for this also, there are requirement of huge number of people from the finance domain. Now, for example, non-banking institutions, as you know, there are a lot of non-banking insurance that are there, which provides loans and also financial services. For example, one can be the Shriram. Basically, they provide for the truck loans. Similarly, for the other loans that is required. So they are basically the non-banking institutions. They also recruit huge amount of finance domain people. Next is basically the mutual funds. As you know, we make investment in the stock market, and there are basically professionals who manages these mutual funds. They are basically highly qualified finance consultants, because they need to know basically the trade in the stock market, depending upon the economic scenario, which are the scripts that need to go up, go down, with a huge amount of in-depth knowledge in finance. And the salaries are phenomenal, right? In those who manage the wealth of those fund managers, what is called. Next is basically, those are basically like some of you may be investing through SIPs, systematic investment plan, or maybe directly investing in the mutual funds when they are basically the NPOs or the stock market when the IPOs are for the share market, right? Now coming to the share, as you know, there is a BSE and NSE. There are two stock exchange in India, and abroad there are multiple. Like you have got London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, right? So where the stocks are basically enlisted and listed, and for that they have to follow multiple procedures, and also there is a huge requirement for finance people. Now there are basically a lot of firms which also provides stock brokerages or provide basically investment opportunities, right? So they also require a lot of people with the finance knowledge, and they will be looking basically experts like you to come and join their companies. Next is the wealth manager, as you know, who are basically quite a rich people. They basically require to manage their wealth so that they can concentrate. The best they know is managing the companies, right? So there are good amount of people who also work as a wealth manager, managing the wealth. Maybe you may be knowing some of the banks or basically some of the institutes. They provide wealth management or wealth. Maybe they're starting with 50 lakhs as a minimum capital with which for the rich and high individuals wealth they will manage, right? They will basically plan how to invest in the stocks, shares, bonds, right? So they plan for that, and they provide higher return than basically the mutual funds, right? So some of the people look into that, and there is also great opportunity for the finance people to work on those areas. Of course, the pension funds, and as you know, NPS and other pension funds are there, where basically for the old age people, the people want to have a secured income, right? So there are some funds for which also they require people to manage those funds, right? So, for example, if you know how to manage a funds, basically there are some criteria, and which, for example, you cannot invest more than 10% in a particular sector, not more than 5% to a company, so that basically to mitigate the risk, so that if any script or anything falls very, very fast, so that your fund which you're managing doesn't fall very, very fast, right? So there are basically some norms, there are some regulatory also requirement that need to be fulfilled, and for which you require people for these services also. Next is as I told you, for individual banking. In the banking, as you know, the credit card or debit card you are using, right? So that also calls for a lot of basically services. For example, in the credit cards, if you have seen that you invest more than 5,000 rupees or any purchase you make, you get some gifts, right? So that always keep on changing, or something or other thing comes up. So to monitor those, manage those, what are the basically how you can basically increase your credit card spending of your customers. Finance people are required to provide suggestions and to monitor and manage those also. So next is basically the loans. The loans can be of multiple areas. It can be corporate loans, it can be personal loans, or it can be loans particular to, for example, housing loans or vehicle loans, where you are purchasing a housing, you require a loan, or a vehicle you're purchasing, you require a loan. For example, some of you may have taken education loan, that is also pertaining to one kind of a loan, right? So banks and financial institutes basically provides those loans, and for they're also managing and providing the services the finance peoples are required. Any question before I move on to the next slide? Next is the professional advisory. There are, as you know, this is a dynamic world, right? And there are basically some of the companies, the operations may not be working well. They want to basically sell off their operations. There is a huge opportunity that is seen is the merger and acquisition area, right? So some of you must be knowing that Larsen took over Mindtree, right? So that is basically an area where a lot of mergers and acquisitions happens. And for that, you have to follow basically a lot of rules. Now, if it is spread into multiple countries, the rules of those countries need to be checked. And also balance sheet review need to be done. The due diligence need to be done, right? Excuse me, somebody want to say something? Any question, please? Hello? Okay. So for that, one need to basically do a due diligence, need to understand the balance sheet, profit and loss, what is basically the tangible assets, intangible assets, based on the valuation need to be done when we take for a merger, right? Or acquisition, when we do an acquisition. Similarly, based on that, if you in a company want to float shares in the market or want to sell the shares, right? Then a lot of regulatory things need to be checked, a lot of financial basically area need to be checked, and after that the consulting need to be provided to those firms so that they can go to the capital market. Next is basically how you can mitigate the risk. Basically you have to check from the balance sheets and profit loss what are the risks are there, maybe discussing with the stakeholders or basically the people who preparing the finance or other areas to find out the risk. Then you have to prepare for a risk mitigation plan. Next is the taxation, right? So each and every country has got a different taxation. In India, we know we have got GST. If you go to Brazil, it is called nota fiscal. If you go to Greece, it is hexenization. If you go to UK, now you must be in Brexit. If you go to China, it's the golden taxation rules. Similarly, each and every country has got its own taxation. One need to understand the taxation. What is the implication of the taxation in the finance world? And based on that, one has to provide the consulting, right? So has to provide the advisory service to the corporate. And this is a huge area where the finance domain people can really play a fantastic role and can get a fantastic reward in long term and also in the short term. Next is these are basically not looked by the multinational companies. This is looked by the small and medium-sized companies or any companies. For example, if you know, now Ola is basically trying to manufacture basically the batteries or the battery station for the battery scooters they're planning to do. They can be doing in multiple states in India, and they're also planning to basically into some neighboring countries in India. So before they venture it out or start basically those stations where they can, the EV cars or their scooters, they can charge, right? They need to know the rules and regulations of that and how basically the financial impact to the company will be, what are the risks they are going to take, right? All those things need to be done. What is the taxation part of it and how they can basically plan the taxation. For example, when I was in Hewlett Packard, I was managing the corporate finance. Also, I was managing the intercompany inter-unit, right? So intercompany means I have to pay for the services or the goods that received from the other countries in India. I have to pay that. So there are basically that is the taxation and arm's lengths are there as per the legal requirement. So we need to find out how best the taxation can be planned so that as a global HP, they can minimize their taxation. So those are the areas where we need to sit together and plan for the corporate so that how we can manage our taxation better. Any question till now before I move? Let me have some water. If there is no question, let me move to the next screen. As I was telling you, wealth management is another very, very critical area, right? So you will be really be interested to know, for example, some of the wealth managers may be managing more than billions of dollars for the large and high rich individuals, what we say, or millions of dollars, right? In India, currently, it's basically some of the banks starts with minimum 25 lakhs, some with 50 lakhs, and they have got some kind of a services that they call as the wealth management, right? So this is another critical area where you will have few individuals, right, who are high net worth to manage their finance better so that they can focus on their work, whereas you are going to help them to manage the investment either through the equity market, debt market, insurance portfolio, derivatives, commodity market, right? Then real estate also. Then based on what is the client financial goal. So somebody says that I want to marry my daughter after 5 years. So I want to have this much of fund. You have to help me. After 3 years, I want to buy a new house. After 2 years, my son's higher education, I want to fund. And this is the amount I'm looking at. So it can be short-term, mid-term, long-term. Based on that, basically the wealth manager focus on basically creating a portfolio which will help the customer to get those returns as per the desired milestones. Next is I go to the mutual funds. This is basically, as you know, I think some of you have already invested in mutual funds. So let me know how many of you have invested in mutual funds. Any answers? How many of you have invested in stock market?
You can unmute and answer, dear students.
No one,
You can
sir.
unmute and answer. Yes.
Hello. How many of you have invested? Okay, no problem.
Not at
So-
invested, sir.
Somebody is trying to speak.
Yes.
Not at invested, sir.
So I hope you're interested about the mutual funds, right? So a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
advertisement comes, right? So mutual funds basically has got professionals, generally are strong in financial knowledge. Why I'm asking you, because this is an area some of you can look into, and this provides a huge rewards in terms of salary and also perks. And just to let you know, this is not in some thousands, not in lakhs. The salary goes into crores. And if somebody meet the target, the basically bonus are also in crores, right? So this is one of the areas with the stock market or the mutual fund or the fund managers, what we call the terminology, what we use, provides enormous amount of basically rewards to the people who can able to manage this and this profession. Right? Of course, it comes with a risk also, because you will be provided target, and based on that target, you have to fulfill. Right? So this is basically an area one can look into, what we call an asset management, and it can be into multiple areas. It can be related to debt or equity. Right? Also, the return can be enormous on this. Next, of course, the insurance. I've talked about the insurance. That terminology is basically not only life insurance, it can be home, medical, fire, travel insurance. Somebody, if you're traveling abroad, you have to take a travel insurance, right? Now, of course, there are multiple insurance plans. In case of life insurance, maybe term life, money back, unit link, right? Pension link. So those are the things are there. And all for this, you require basically finance professions to manage those. Of course, the stock market, if you are basically who are interested in stock market, can directly invest in shares, or can be used basically put on options, or basically look into the future options, right? Or can basically invest in SAPs, that is systematic equity plan way. Now you can earn some kind of a dividends, right? So I hope you have already know about what kind of shares are there. You have got equity shares, preferential shares, then you have got bonds, right? Those are also quoted in the stock exchange. So this is for those managing those. You require finance professionals how to manage that, right? So this is another area very interesting and can provide good reward in future. And also currently are they providing. And as you know, India is in growth path, right? And India is looking for a 5 trillion economy. Now, to achieve that, that means there will be a lot of companies that will be coming into the market to sell their shares, right? That will be a huge demand for that. Not only that, for those companies which are already in the stock exchange, there are some regulatory requirements, and to fulfill that also, you need to basically provide services. So that provides enormous services. And just to let you know, for the ladies in this audience, each and every company who are quoted in the Bombay Stock Exchange has to have a mandatory one woman in their board, right? So you can understand for ladies also, there is a huge opportunity to join the corporate as a board of director, right? Which are the basically the companies which are already basically listed into the Bombay Stock Exchange, just for information. So you can focus understanding about basically how the market works, and also you can be an independent director or part of the board of directors. So that also provides a lot of opportunities for you. Next is basically the treasury. So treasury and debt instrument is very, very critical part of any corporate. Now, as you know, for example, when I was managing the corporate finance, now we have to take basically the loans. If we have to take, we have to check how to minimize our basically cost to the company, or the basically the debt financing. Now there are basically some banks are providing maybe 6%. Maybe I go to the international borrowing, maybe Bank of UK, and at the LIBOR rate. LIBOR is basically the London interbank exchange rate, right? So I can get it at 1% plus maybe 0.5%. So at 1.5%. Now, if I take a loan from the abroad, right, I need to basically have for that manage that forex risk also. I have to take a forex cover. So there are a lot of things that are very, very important and critical. For example, whatever the money you are getting, you have to swap into your current account, maybe the treasury account from where you are making payment. So based on that, you can utilize your funds much, much better. So there are some areas where the finance people are required, and those are the areas that are in huge demand, right? So how best you can use your finance as a leverage to maximize your profit, right? Because this is a competitive world. The more interest you pay, your low profit will be lower, right? So how best with the same capital, you pay the lower rate of interest to maximize your profit. And by doing that, you will increase the valuation of your company, right? So this is another area maybe you can look into as your future, basically, growth area. Of course, capital restructuring, I have touched base about you. These are the one of the areas where the finance people are required whenever there is a merger, acquisition, right? Whenever a company take over another company. So they basically want to restructure the capital, they restructure the company. So doing that, they minimize the cost, right? So this is another very, very important area one can look into, and where basically the finance people can play a fantastic role for the growth of that company and also for the career as a basically growth area, right? So this is also important area for you. Of course, the portfolio management, I have already touched base. Portfolio management or portfolio consultants in finance is a very, very important part. And also this is showing a lot of growth. I'm seeing a lot of people I'm meeting is basically focusing this as their career opportunity and growth also. So they've come in contact with the high-end individuals managing their finance portfolio and also helping them to meet the milestone. So some of the corporate finance, of course, if somebody wants to go to directly to the finance, corporate finance, so I just giving you some of the areas that managing treasury, managing budgeting, planning, receivables, payables, right? The corporate reporting, the tax reporting, managing the auditors, as I told you, both internal, interim, external auditors, SOX auditors, tax auditors. Then another important area, for example, managing ERP system. As I told you, most of the large corporates, right, are using SAP ERP or maybe Oracle ERP. So for me, I have focused into the SAP ERP systems, and currently in Wipro, I'm basically the lead for the pre-sales for the finance part also on the SAP side. As I told you, there are both from the corporate world and also from the IT industry, they require huge number of finance domain people who understand the finance, who can do the consulting and basically configure and provide the customer specific solution, right? So this plays a very, very important role. So please remember, business is a driver and IT is the enabler. And here, both knowledge from business side and from the IT side really will provide a good career opportunity for you. Next is that import and export. So this is another area. As you know, the more the India is growing, right? You must be hearing that India, I think, 11th of June, it has crossed 608 billion US dollar as forex reserve, right? And India is now ranking 4th in the world with the forex reserve. That actually gives lot of power to India. And India is always growing. Now it has just overseeded Russia, right? So you can see in the coming days, the more the country with the forex reserves, right, will have more investments coming to it, more business growth will be there, because who are investing, right? For example, if you know that you can give a loan to a person who will repay your loan. You will not give a loan to a beggar, right? Whom you know that he cannot repay to you. Similarly, a country which has got a strong forex reserve, then basically there will be a lot of companies outside, a lot of corporates or the government will fund projects in India, right? And which also will open up a lot of opportunities for you. So that is why the import and export is another area where you can think of your career. Of course, there are areas where the finance people are required. More and more multinational companies comes, the intercompany transactions becomes very, very important. And that is an area you require finance people to work and help to manage that. Treasury, as I told you, this is where how you manage your liquidity, how you manage your DSO, how you want to reduce your overall cost. Those are the things, how you mitigate your risk. One and two, look into those. Now, these are the areas basically one need to focus and need to work so that the company can optimize their cost. Just for an example, if you know the Reliance, the Treasury, every year they make a profit more than 500 crores, right? One small department. So you can understand each and every organization's now basically focusing on the Treasury as a department where basically that can help the company to also manage not only their instruments better, minimize their cost, also helps them to earn extra profit. So some of the functions in Treasury, the cash management, liquidity management, then basically availability funds at the right time, deployment of the funds at the right time, optimize of the utilization of the resources, the risk management, maximization of the return for the funds that are available, right? As I mentioned to you. So these are some of the areas one need to focus on how you can best manage the functions of the Treasury. Of course, as you know, some of the financial processes, this is a small area, just wanted to give you, like order to customer, that O2C. Now, there is process to pay, or what we call the procure to pay. Now, coming from O2C is another terminology from order to cash, right? For example, procure to pay, what happens? In a large organizations, there is a purchase department does the purchase requisition, create the purchase order. Then basically, based on that, they will basically, when the goods comes, the GRI are done, good receipt is done, then invoice verification is done after the payment is done, right? All those processes, as you know, will require finance people to manage that and also provide the services. So those are any corporate, those are the business processes. As a process consultant or any of the processes, you can basically, as a leader, you can manage those business processes also. And that also provides a good amount of opportunity. Similarly, from order to cash, basically, when the sales order is done, the billing is done, then you have the revenue and the account receivable. Now, there are basically how you manage the revenue, how you manage the account receivable, because if you cannot manage your account receivable, money doesn't come, then it will affect your cash flow, right? If your cash management is not proper, then your company will become sick. Then all those things require finance people managing those. And as basically you're a student, you can look into those areas as your growth career, and that also provide a huge amount of opportunity. Now, just about the financial management, of course, I'm not going to take you into the this thing, but just wanted to make you understand where you fit in. Now, any company or corporate, the objective is the money is needed. So they want to increase the revenue that they were looking at, how the outflows can be reduced. That is the payments can be reduced so that they can basically maximize their profit. Next is that if those not achieved, how that can be achieved. So how the investment will need to be planned, right? So all those comes into the financial planning, and where each and every one of you can fit in, and whichever the areas you can basically manage and can be the leader in that area also, and ultimately move up the ladder and become basically a CEO or CFO in those corporates also. Now coming to the business process management, some of the process management that one we can see is basically budget planning, profitability analysis, cash flow planning, financial close and consolidation. Here, basically, each and every company, as you know, quarterly reporting has to be done. If the corporate is already listed in the stock exchange, right? Now, these has got subsidiary companies, then the consolidation has to be done, how the consolidation reporting need to be done. And for that, finance people is required. So that can be a fantastic growth area. Next is the banking and reporting, disclosure management, compliance reporting, and of course the advanced analytics, where also the dashboard preparation. So these are with the finance domain knowledge, one can take into this as also career path. Other careers, of course, is basically coming into multiple areas, which I mentioned: investments, education industry. Some of you can become teachers also, right? So, and also the universities, where, in fact, when I see the foreign universities, they go for a lot of practical way of training also, right? So they're basically the financial portfolio management or financial product as a finance as a product, how you can better utilize it. A lot of innovation goes also in that, right? So the algorithm, how the algorithm is there, the business rules from the finance side, how need to be done to the product. So this can be also be part of an innovation, and that also you can take it as a career growth. Now, basically coming to an end, that is one of the career options in finance. Of course, accounting, one can be an accounting professionals, one can go to the corporate finance, investment banking, portfolio management, finance planning, commercial banking, compliance and internal control, and many, many more, as you have seen, in fact, last 40 minutes, which I've been talking about, right? So that opens a door for a huge opportunity, right? So there is no limitation for any finance person to basically only restrict only to what mentioned in this page, but it goes to beyond that, because each and everything you touch will have a basically implication to finance. And with that, I want to basically ask if you have got any questions and answers. So any questions, please?
Yes, sir. I have one question, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, how will be the opportunities for finance role in abroad countries?
Okay, very good question. So there are huge opportunities for the finance people in abroad, right? One, you can think of going do an MBA in finance. Of course, there are a lot of good institutes that provide. And as I told you, managing or the wealth manager or the fund managers abroad, those salaries are millions of dollars. Next is basically there are mergers and acquisitions happening. So any corporate will always look for the finance people to manage those and basically lead those areas. Next is basically accounting is an heart of any corporate, right? Without you, whatever the company, if they become sick also, they will require the finance people to manage their books. The reporting need to be done. For any corporate growth, the loans they need to take, or basically the reporting, as I told you, external world, everything, managing the auditors, all those things need to be managed by your finance people. So the growth is enormous. Now with the new things that are coming up, like the blockchain, if you are aware, that is nothing based on the distributed ledger, right? So the corporates that are coming with basically a lot of financial product. If you want to go to the stock exchange also, now without human touch, they will do an investment based on the algorithms and logics. So those are provided from the finance people, right? So once the finance people knows those, they can provide those. Next is the managing the taxation. Again, is the local and legal requirement. You need to know basically the finance is the critical part, and where finance people will play a good role, and it's a great opportunity for them. Any more question, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. How to be more updated with the technology in finance?
Okay, so good question. So yeah, so technology in finance, for example, as you have seen myself, though I am a basically all India rank holder in cost also final, but I have taken basically a route into the SAP ERP. Of course, when the Oracle ERP was implemented for the first time, I was a power user on that. So like SAP as a technology, right, is an integrated basically system, right? It's a product where a lot of things can be done. So using the finance knowledge, using the IT, how it can be done, providing the solution to the customer. So currently that's what I'm doing, but the customer may be looking at how they can best optimize their resources by a proper ERP system, right, or IT system, which will help them to provide the minimize utilization of the resources. Also, basically, minimum human hands required to operate those operations and basically optimize their profit. So, and basically optimize the overall, basically the operations. And that is why they implement ERP system, right? So there, basically, you can, of course, if you want to go analytics, there are a lot of SaaS tools that are available. Now, for example, you can use BI tool. There's SaaS tools are there. One can not only to, I'm saying SAP, one can go to Salesforce, one can go to Pega. Those are the other platforms. The PPML tools are also there. One can focus on those tools, learn those tools, and also with the finance knowledge, you can make a good career of yourself. Any question, please? So I think we are almost coming to an end. So if we do not have any question, so thank you everybody for the wonderful session, and looking forward to meet you in your campus.
So one more doubt, sir.
Yes, please tell me.
Sir, as finance roles have huge demand in market, but why do finance internships are less in opportunities?
Yep. So basically, see, internship, I think basically the finance internship is quite less in the market, because people are basically looking for with some kind of an add-on knowledge, right? Now, the finance firms, for example, maybe you have not targeted the finance audit firms or those firms where they will be looking pure finance professionals. But I know there are some manufacturing companies, they look for the finance people in some of the areas in finance, which they provide the internship, where basically they're looking for a short period, right? For example, there is a SOX audit need to happen. Or basically there is, for example, interim audit need to be happen. So they need to fulfill that. Or there is a treasury. They need to go to float their shares, right? So they want for this period, like 3 months period, they want some people to work on that. So then they will require. The problem in finance, it's a long term, right? So like engineering professions, they can be a short-term product development or this thing. In finance, we don't get those kind of product development. Maybe that way you have the number of finance people in the internship is less, but of course the opportunities are enormous. Maybe you need to tap it much better way. Maybe you need to look into increase your horizon, maybe into the IT companies also, or maybe the audit firms, where I think they will be looking for a lot number of internships. And also, since maybe during this COVID, most of the business are quite closed, we can see less demand for those kind of services. But with the coming days, we are seeing a booming economy, and I hope there will be a great, basically, requirement for finance professions.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, thank you, everybody. So, have a nice day and a nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you so much, Sabyasachi sir. On a Saturday, I know that you have a very busy schedule, and in spite of all your work, you have really, I can see the kind of preparation you have done, sir, to make the presentation and try to bring all the details for the students. Sabyasachi sir, I really appreciate. On behalf of Sanskrithi School of Business and faculty behalf and my own behalf, I really thank you. And thank you very much for spending your time and giving so much of information. You actually explained the entire horizon of the career in finance, starting from the beginners to the experienced actually. I know that we have a pool of first year as well as second year in the class now today on the virtual platform. So they are yet to be exposed to a lot of financial concepts, but still you have tried to simplify the concepts and explain everything to them. Thank you so much. And it's our privilege that you have accepted our invitation. And it's really such a pleasure to listen to you. And thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.